I'm James Brierton in Charlotte. It is Wednesday, August the 7th, 2024. We are tracking live Tropical Storm Debby, which is just hours away from making landfall here in the Carolinas. Live coverage of Tropical Storm Debby and severe weather ongoing in the Carolinas right now. I'm James Brierton in Charlotte. Welcome to live coverage of Tropical Storm Debby. We're here on this Wednesday, August 7th, 2024. We are just hours away from the storm making landfall in the Carolinas. The storm's second U.S. landfall after coming ashore as a Category 1 hurricane earlier this week in Florida. Joining me once again from Charleston is Jared Smith. We have our own Dan Whitaker, who's out storm chasing, and he'll be along shortly. And we are continuing to watch at this hour not only what we can expect out of this storm in the hours ahead, but what is actually happening right now in the Carolinas, where we just moments ago got cleared from a tornado warning. So let's go right on down to Jared, who's got radar up on the screen, and he can set the stage for us here just past this 9 o'clock hour. Jared?
Got radar up on the screen, and he can set the stage for us here just past this 9 o'clock hour. Jared?
Yep, James, good to be with everybody, and we're getting close to landfall. This is so. I guess the first thing to note here is that this is certainly not the healthiest tropical cyclone you'll ever see. There's virtually nothing in the inner core. In fact, it has max winds of 60 miles an hour, but the 60-mile-an-hour winds are well offshore. So there's really not much, not going to be as much wind. There's going to be some wind as it comes ashore here. It looks like it's going to come ashore near Bulls Bay here. Let me turn the forecast and the cone on real quick. And you can see as of 8 o'clock, maximum winds about 60 miles an hour, moving north at 3. So it has made that turn. It is making that turn. The ridge is building in from the east as expected, and it is going to go into, looks like near McClellanville, South Carolina. So zoom in here. There's Allendale. And there's McClellanville right here. And so you can see the rain bands continue to go around it. We have some downpours here. We have a flash flood warning, too, over here in Walterboro. There's been another resurgence of very heavy rain with this rain band kind of exploded during the day as the storm was offshore. And we got some heating of the day mixed in. And so that got going there. And some very heavy rain took place and is exacerbating some additional flooding there. What's not shown on the screen is the aerial flood warnings, too. We have flood warnings all over the low country of South Carolina, numerous streams and rivers, either in flood or heading to flood. So some big problems there as that goes. But yeah, but we're close. We're getting really close, James. It may not be too much longer before the center of Debby comes ashore. There's this main rain band here. This has produced a couple tornadoes. You can see the, produced a couple tornado warnings. We don't know if it's actually produced tornadoes, but you can see the warnings here. And this last polygon just expired, so it's going to go away here in about 10 seconds on the next run of the loop. But you can see the very heavy rain band moving in there. And when we look at the and so let's go to the reflectivity here. We do have a tornado watch in effect until 11 o'clock. Includes Myrtle Beach, Wilmington, Jacksonville, New Bern, and Beaufort. This is going to go for a little bit longer as the center of Debby, which is roughly looking from the Wilmington radar. It's just getting pretty close. It's getting pretty close there. We have been certainly getting just absolutely slammed with rain. This has exceeded the scale. Okay. Never seen this before. That is interesting. Shouldn't have exceeded the scale like that, but that's how this goes sometimes.
Literally
that
too much rain. It completely broke the color table.
Yeah, it broke my color table. I don't think I'm using the right color table, but that's okay. But just in the last hour, we've had rainfall that's been, on the order of 2 inches an hour, and we've had numerous. This is the rain. This is the total rain from the last 4 days, and you can see where you have these pinks. This is 10 to 15, and over 10 to 12, and then 12 to 15 right here in the Ace Basin. And this is a kind of a mix of radar, precipitation, and gauge information as well. And you have all the rivers in flood here as well. several rivers in flood. Fortunately, the French Quarter Creek near Hugie was crested at 13.02 feet. That's major flood, and that means water getting into homes. Unfortunately, it's starting to peter out, thank goodness. But we'll have to keep an eye on some of this rain. A little concerned about some of this rain, maybe getting a little too heavy and popping that back up. We keep going here. Here's Black Creek near Quimby. It's forecast to peak at around 16 feet. That's in the moderate flood stage there. And in moderate, I don't think they have any additional information on that. But see, James, we've got, we get some big rapid rises on, in the PD. And I know that folks in the PD remember very well, Florence very well from 2018. And this is not a site that they were hoping that they would see again.
Yeah, all this flooding still feels a little too close to home after years of bygone flooding events, and we'll continue to see if we get any more of those tornado warnings. Scrolling across the bottom of your screen this evening are real-time warnings from the National Weather Service. In red there, you will see flash flood warnings, you will see tornado warnings, you'll see severe thunderstorm warnings if we were to get any of those. We're not really expecting much in the way of those. The big takeaway from this event that we've seen the last couple days and in the days ahead will be the flooding potential that comes with this storm, the flooding situation that could be historic in some places. Jared, you guys have seen so much rain already, and it doesn't take much to flood Charleston. How has the resiliency been there in downtown Charleston in particular?
Surprisingly, well, not surprisingly, honestly, we've done this so many times at this point, we know exactly what to do. It's been good. Downtown was open today. The curfew was lifted at 7 a.m. and people transacted business as normal. Had some eyewitness reports of pretty much absolutely nothing. Still a couple roads that were closed. It does take a while sometimes to get some of the deeper lakes, so to speak, to clean out, but all in all, downtown had problems. It had problems for a couple days off and on, but we got lucky in a couple aspects. We're not dealing with storm surge, so no saltwater flooding of note, which is really good. They had pumps deployed very well. The pumps were out there doing their thing, had the pumps in the right places. So downtown had its moments for sure. No doubt about it. If you were watching the Weather Channel, Cantori was down there in the waders. You saw kind of you saw what happens when we get 7, 8, 9 inches of rain in a very short period of time. But that has gotten better. Really, the flooding issues that we're dealing with now are inland. They're along the rivers. They're along, the Ashley River is rising. The Edisto River is forecast to go to major flood stage. The Santee River is going to at least moderate flood stage. So we've got, we're going to have flooding issues along the river for potentially days well after Debby accelerates out of here.
Yeah, we are going to show you here on the screen right now
See
what the view
that
is
conditions
like
do
in
remain
Charleston
wet
this
there. We
evening, and
do
you can
have
see,
also in now
that
from the
conditions do
National Weather
remain
Service
wet
some
there.
new
We do have
ongoing
also in
flooding. And
now
let's talk a
from
little
the
bit about
National
that.
Weather
It's the National
Service
Weather
some
Service
new
in
ongoing
Wilmington at this
flooding, and
hour who's
let's
telling
talk a
us
little bit about
that they've
that.
just
It's the
issued a
National
new
Weather
flash
Service in
flood warning
Wilmington
of a
at this hour
considerable
who's
level.
telling
That's
us
tier 2 out of
that
3
they've
for
just
Bladen,
issued a new
Columbus,
flash
New
flood
Hanover,
warning
Pender,
of a
and Robinson
considerable level.
County.
That's tier 2 out
And
of
this
3
is
for
because there
Bladen,
is ongoing
Columbus, New
flooding there
Hanover,
as
Pender,
they are
and
now
Robinson
experiencing these
County.
heavy bands
And this is
from
because there
Tropical
is
Storm
ongoing
Debby. The
flooding there
Wilmington
as
Fire
they are
Department
now
dispatched
experiencing
just
these heavy
moments ago
bands
for a
from
vehicle in
Tropical Storm Debby.
floodwaters
The
near the
Wilmington Fire
intersection of
Department
North
dispatched
College
just
Road
moments
and
ago for a
Business
vehicle in
Drive.
floodwaters near the
And so
intersection
that
of
is what the
North College
situation
Road
is
and
like tonight.
Business
This
Drive.
ongoing flash
And
flooding
so
threat.
that is what the situation is like tonight. This ongoing flash flooding threat that we can also expect to continue to play out across the next few days. This is a flooding threat that will be no stranger to so many different parts of the Carolinas, and I want to show that to you right now by showing you what the WPC, the Weather Prediction Center, is outlining as the threat for flooding as we head on through the rest of today and into tomorrow. You can see right now coming up on your screen where we've got that high risk. Let's zoom this on over here. The high risk for flash flooding right there between Wilmington, back south through South Carolina, through Myrtle Beach, back just north of Charleston, and then a ring outside of that for moderate and slight risk flooding. This is for the remainder of tonight and the beginning of the overnight hours. And then as we advance to tomorrow, that risk for severe flash flooding kind of stripes right on through the Carolinas. Matter of fact, I think, Jared, this has actually been updated since the last time I looked at it, where you can see that the high risk now includes places like Greensboro, North Carolina, and even Roanoke, Virginia. The I-77 corridor for Charlotte, Statesville, and down towards Columbia in that moderate risk, as is part of the Triangle region of Raleigh. So you can see that a large swath of both South Carolina and North Carolina are in some sort of flash flooding scenario as we look ahead to tomorrow as this storm continues to move on through. There's still probably some variance on exactly where this storm will go and what it will do, but let's show you the latest HRRR computer model run. This is the highest rapid refresh model run that we have available to us when we get into a short-term forecast, just like the one that we're in right now. It's, of course, one of our favorite to go to because it really does help us see as best as we can where this storm may be. So right now, just offshore still as a tropical storm, and then as we go through the hours ahead, just after midnight, probably making a landfall, and we can debate where exactly that might happen, but say somewhere between Charleston and Myrtle Beach. But then watch those outer bands come into the I-77 corridor in North Carolina after the 2 o'clock hour. You can see heavy rain where I am in Charlotte during the morning rush hour, and that'll be sporadic and broken across so much of North Carolina that whether you're in Greensboro or Raleigh, even out into Greenville, North Carolina, you could see these periods of tropical heavy flash flooding. Rainfall rates of 1, 2, 3 inches an hour are possible with this storm. And the same thing even in South Carolina. While the southern end of the eye, or the southern end of the circulation, excuse me, will be a little bit drier with some drier air mixing in, you could still see heavier rains coming back through even places like Charleston, Columbia, and Greenville, South Carolina. But that flooding threat will begin to transition, Jared, from South Carolina to North Carolina as we start to look ahead to tomorrow.
Yeah, I've got the similar run up here now, and yeah, it's aggressive. I'd say the high res is aggressive, but again, that's just, we get some drier air back there, but that's also going to get us some daytime heating, and then you just get into regular summertime thunderstorms. It just happens to be on the back end of the circulation, and so and the high res is very excited about that. It certainly seems like there's some big reflectivity cores in there. So hopefully that doesn't pan out because, the model is showing a lot of rain going over a lot of places where we don't want it.
Yep. That certainly seems to be the case. In just moments here, we're going to check in with Carolina Weather Group storm chaser Dan Whitaker. He is out right now, probably not too far from Carolina Beach, because Dan, I know that's where you were a little bit earlier. Where are you now, and what are you seeing?
Hey James, let's see. Can you hear me right now?
Yeah, we got you, Dan.
Okay, great. Yeah, so I am. Let's see. I'm traveling right now, just out of Carolina Beach and Carolina Beach into Wilmington. Right now, I'm kind of just on the stretch heading that way. But I've been kind of a little bit all over the place the last little while.
What have you seen so far?
So basically, the ocean's pretty rough. We've got a lot of waves going, very choppy and not that great of surf, but just very choppy. I'm seeing some cooling of water in the roadways and parking lots and stuff like that. Nothing too crazy yet. And some wind. Ultimately, I was out on the beach looking for water spouts. These cells have been spinning and eventually producing tornadoes as they're coming inland a little bit. So I've been keeping an eye on those. And I guess the final piece to the puzzle that I'm looking for is over in Wilmington, there's a few roads that are impassable and some water rising in parts of downtown Wilmington, according to some recent storm reports. So that's where I'm heading right now, to kind of put my eyes on that and see what's going on in that area.
Yeah, we've seen those flooding storm reports too coming in. So glad that you're heading down into that Wilmington area to see exactly what might be going on. Matter of fact, we can tell you that the National Weather Service in the last few minutes confirming for us that the Wilmington Fire Department is on its way to floodwaters, or where there may be a vehicle in the floodwaters near the intersection of North College Road and Business Drive there in that area. They're also working right now off of roadway flooding information coming in from the town of Clarkton, which is along North Carolina Route 211, just east of the intersection with US 701 Business. So we do have a lot of flash flooding right now that seems to be ongoing in the greater Wilmington area. And as we switch back over to radar scope, it's the green polygon boxes that indicate where those flash flood warnings are in effect. And if we push on into Wilmington, you can actually see there's 4 right in a row local storm reports of flash flooding that are ongoing right across this area, all from the coast and then further inland, where we've now seen from emergency managers reporting flooding along Marina and Short Street, flooded and impassable there. That's in the Wrightsville Beach area. A little bit closer to Wilmington, we do have that road impassable. This is College Acres Drive, where fire rescue is on scene. And then emergency management reporting to us that 17th and Nunn Street are also impassable because of floodwaters. And out towards Leland, at least 3 feet of water on the roadway at this hour near Redfield Drive and Pinehurst. I think that was Pinehurst Drive, and we'll expect to see even more of these. If you're down towards Carolina Beach and Seabreeze, we also are seeing 3 feet of water right now in portions of Sedgley Drive as more rain now moving through that area. You can see offshore we still have some rain coming in, and we'll watch. Jared, you're very familiar with this from the Charleston area, watching for what could be the possibility that we get waterspouts or rotation associated with some of these offshore storms and cells that are still coming on shore here and circulating their way on through. You see anything right now on velocity?
Yeah, let's pull it up here. So far it looks okay. I feel like it's not as pronounced as it was certainly the other night when we were on. Let's pull up the gate-to-gate shear product. I'm not really seeing a whole lot out there. There's a secondary shear product. So I think right now we're looking okay here. There's no active special marine warnings. So those are usually a tell. If you have a special marine warning out, that's usually a tell that Weather Service office is tracking a waterspout there. And you can see there's just lots of greens on the storm relative velocity, a lot of wind towards the radar, but not too much that is counter to that. So I'm feeling, James, like that right now we're okay. But again, the tornado watch does continue. I mean, we have a tornado watch in effect here, and this tornado watch goes until 11 o'clock. And so it's still possible. We just had a tornado warning drop off the screen. They've had warnings off and on all day. So definitely something that we're going to need to keep an eye on over the next little bit.
Certainly. Thank you for that, Jared. We have some new video in right now. I'm going to go ahead and play this on our screen that shows some of that flooding right now. This is downtown Bladenboro from the Sampson County, North Carolina Sheriff's Office, and you can see just how high, let's play that again for you, just how high some of those floodwaters are. Matter of fact, you can actually see in the distance what is a street sign there, right? Probably up on a stop sign pole. And this water here, look, at least a foot or 2 deep as this vehicle makes its way through. Hopefully this is a law enforcement vehicle that's high off the ground. Not that we would advise anybody to be driving through floodwaters. And you can also see these waters appear to come right on up to this home here in downtown Bladenboro. And so these are the type of things that would most certainly prompt a flash flood warning to tell these people that there is water rising in areas where there shouldn't be water. From where I sit in Charlotte right now, I can also tell you that the Charlotte Fire Department and the Mooresville Fire Rescue have sent members of their swift water rescue teams and equipment out towards Bladen County, also out towards Harnett County to assist with any possible rescues. They left earlier today. We've already seen them corresponding with emergency management, asking where they need to go and where they need to be deployed. So this is not only a statewide impact in terms of where the heavy rain and the flooding will come inland, but also the fact that resources are being deployed across the state, even from outside the state, to help with water and eventually power restoration. As we know, Duke Energy has also brought in a lot of crews. It's about 9:30 now, and you're watching live coverage of Tropical Storm Debby on the Carolina Weather Group, a weekly show discussing weather, science, technology, and more. We normally stream in this time slot at 9 p.m. Eastern every week, and we've been up extra this week, of course, tracking this tropical storm, and now we're watching it come right to our doorsteps as we begin to see more of these heavy rains move into portions of North Carolina, and where Jared Smith is my co-host in Charleston, South Carolina. He was live on the Carolina Weather Group Monday night tracking multiple tornado warnings that came into the Charleston area. And Jared, now that it's been a couple of days, the Weather Service has been able to verify some of those tornado warnings that they had up earlier in the week. What have we learned?
Yeah, so we've had so James, it's let me I'm grabbing the public info statements right now out of Slack. So yeah, we've confirmed several tornadoes. The Weather Service is they're sending survey teams out. There's a lot to look at. There's we had numerous tornadoes that night. If you were watching us, you know that we were just like couplet after couplet after couplet, it felt like. And so a couple of the their investigation was ongoing with tornadoes in Monk's Corner, which was rated an EF1 with 95-mile-an-hour winds. You probably have seen pictures of that. That was the tornado that hit the Arby's. And blew out the windows, blew out the seats. They have no seats and they have no meats. So there you go. Edisto Beach came back. There's potentially 2 tornadoes on Edisto Beach, as it turns out, that they're investigating right now. The first one came back as an EF1, about near 100 miles an hour for that. And then Ladies Island came back as an EF0. Kiowa came back as an EF0. And then West Ashley and Isle of Palms are still under investigation. So we've got a lot to go.
Check,
and
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
And there's more to come. So again,
1, 2, 3,
it was a
4,
very
5.
busy night tornado wise, and it looks like it was a busy day, at least warning wise, for those in Wilmington as well.
Yeah, we'll keep a close eye on the radar tonight to see if we get any more tornado warnings that come throughout the evening as we continue to watch. Dan Whitaker, our Carolina Weather Group storm chaser, is right now on his way towards the Wilmington area, where we've received reports of flooding. Taking a look right now at his live dash cam, you can see those dark and wet conditions. Luckily, right now, we're not seeing any ponding of the roadway in Dan's shot, but it is a good reminder that it's probably not a great night unless you're a storm chaser or a first responder or some sort of frontline worker to be out and about. It's best just to stay home, because we have to watch for flooding of roadways, especially in those low-lying areas. And so we'll check back in with Dan here, who's in motion, and he'll be out there, I know, throughout the course of the night into tomorrow as Debby slowly makes its way across the Carolinas. Let me show that to you one more time. I was looking at it on a preview monitor here, but now you're seeing it, I think, at home, where you can see Dan is on his way again towards that Wilmington area to talk about some of that flash flooding that we've been telling you about in the first half an hour of coverage here on the Carolina Weather Group. So we'll check back in with Dan in just a few minutes. But as we go back over to Radar Scope, we've gotten even additional flood reports in. We've talked about some of the ones towards Wilmington and Carolina Beach, but we also have some that train spotters have sent in. This is in Ash, North Carolina, 1 foot of water covering the road at the intersection of Whiteville Road and Mill Branch Road. And this came in at 7:40 tonight, so certainly they've gotten even more rain since then. This here shows us that Highway 17 impassable in both directions. Traffic is being diverted there. Law enforcement reporting now in Ocean Island Beach that the road is impassable. Ocean Island Beach Road and Lakewood Drive. And last but not least, Highway 904 flooded and impassable parts from Highway 17 to Old Georgetown Road. Those are just a few reports that the Weather Service has been able to verify and get on here. Well, there's probably even more roads than we can count right now that are experiencing flash flooding. In Whiteville, North Carolina, water from the Molly's Branch Creek is flowing across West Burkhead Street and West Lewis Street, making those areas impassable. And in Bladesboro, we've got a report just from a few moments ago where portions of South Main Street are now impassable. And you can see that heavy rain continues at this hour. Even some lightning right now being reported near Elizabethtown. So some of these tropical storms producing lightning with them as they are continuing to pound very heavy rain rates as far inland right now as Lumberton coming up to UNC Pembroke and the I-95 corridor is raining right now pretty heavy in Fairmount and the town of Fork and even into Marion. This will be coming into Florence, South Carolina, Lake City here in the next few minutes, and then we'll watch it as it spins back down towards Sumter, how much of that holds together, and then how much more of this is still continuing to come onshore. Wouldn't be surprised in the next few minutes if we start to see heavier rain rates near Sneads Ferry and Jacksonville, North Carolina, where you can see rain is coming onshore right now at a pretty heavy clip, and that will be coming towards Half Moon and Richlands here in the next few minutes. We're getting reports from some of you watching online with us and commenting live with us on YouTube. Bob tells us it's very heavy right now in Knightsville, South Carolina, where the rain is coming down real good. We have another report here from Medic Nate, who just drove from Roper, North Carolina on the Albemarle Sound to Wilson, North Carolina. Mild flooding during his venture. Plymouth to Williamston area, but nothing from Williamston to Wilson just yet. So we'll be watching for worsening conditions as we head on through the overnight hours with that lingering threat of flash flooding. We also are in touch right now with the National Weather Service offices across the Carolinas to see exactly what it is that they are seeing on radar, what they're learning from first responders on the ground, and what they're also learning from broadcast media who might have crews out in the field bringing back in storm reports. If you have storm reports, the Weather Service will always take them too on social media. You can relay them through us as we're continuing to stream live here tonight. You can also, of course, tweet at them or on X. They also respond there too. And Jared, you know, firsthand as somebody who lives in downtown or near downtown Charleston, where you get a lot of flooding, those firsthand reports sometimes are the first line of defense.
Oh, no question. I mean, I can't say enough how many times a social media report has instigated a warning, has verified a warning, has continued a warning in which the forecasters are trying to figure out, hey, what do I do with this? A lot of people are, taking photos and lots of really good information actually that come out of those. So yeah, please send your reports. The Weather Service only has, they have the radar, they have a lot of things, but they need eyes on the ground. They're in an office, they're in an office with a lot of computers around them. You can be their eyes and ears.
And that's certainly one of the things Dan Whitaker is doing as a storm chaser. He not only has a camera to send back pictures, because seeing is believing, but he's also connected to the Weather Service. Dan, if you're able to safely unmute right now, what are the driving conditions like as you make your way towards Wilmington?
So, I hope, can you hear me well right now, James?
Yeah, Dan, we got you.
Wonderful. Cool. I'm switching between a couple different types of audio because sometimes this rain's getting a little bit louder. So right now I'm kind of between a couple of cells. It's light rain. The heavier rain's coming here in just a second with a storm that's coming up from the ocean just off of the side of Carolina Beach. And that's going to pack another punch here. Each one of these cells that come over with this heavy rain will at least allow for some momentary street ponding and some difficult driving conditions. But it looks like, as you were talking about, James, that the flood reports are really starting to come in some of these areas. I'm seeing some of this in the lower lying areas. In general, though, knowing this area pretty well and knowing Wilmington pretty well, I've driven through these areas for numerous tropical storms and hurricanes. Hurricane Matthew and Hurricane Irene and Hurricane Florence. I've seen enough of this to kind of know when the flooding is getting really bad. And at this point, what I'm seeing, at least in this section near Carolina Beach, between Carolina Beach and Wilmington, is the drainage is working out pretty well. I'm not seeing widespread flooding concerns yet. However, of course, once I get to downtown Wilmington here in the next few minutes, we're going to see what that's like. It's easier to flood there, but oh, here we go. Actually, on my stream right here, this parking lot is looks about 6 to 8 inches underwater. So we're seeing some things like that. I haven't seen any damage to vehicles or stranded vehicles or any sort of flood emergency scenes yet. But there's still a lot more water to come. Ground has been saturated even before Debbie got here, and we're definitely going to see some larger effects as this rain keeps coming in. That's what's bound to happen.
Dan, I feel like you said a very key word that I want to let people know because it's a real possibility in the course of the next few hours today here. We might get these things called flash flood emergencies. They are the most severe, most urgent, most dangerous of a flash flood scenario. Right now on the board, we have flash flood warnings. They should be taken seriously. You should watch for quickly rising water during a flash flood warning and seek higher ground if need be. If you see a flash flood emergency come out, that means that there are active water rescues. There is active, excessive danger to life. And one of the ways that you would be warned about those is they would come to your phone. The wireless emergency alert would go off on your phone, which is one of several ways you should have to receive warnings, especially as we go through this landfall during the overnight hours. You want redundant ways to be woken up. I don't think any one of us right now, maybe Dan aside, is going to be up all night long. And so even when we go to take our rest, I'm going to rely on a NOAA weather radio. That's like a smoke detector for storms that will wake me up. My phone is a good one too, but phones rely on cellular connections. The analog weather radio is a good backup to that. And hey, don't be shy. If you see something in the middle of the night, albeit a tornado warning, a flash flood emergency, and you see it happening in a friend or family member's town, call and wake them up. They'll get over it. You're just trying to look out for them. Word of mouth is one of the best ways too. Dan, how far out from Wilmington are you right now?
I am a little less than 5 minutes from downtown Wilmington.
All right.
So as we get closer, I'm definitely, I'm kind of at a road between the Cape Fear River here and some other lakes or ponds. And yeah, it's interesting. I mean, this would be an area where I would expect to see some more flooding, but I'm probably less than a couple miles away from a few of the flood reports of impassable roads. So that is where we will be next.
You know, it's so interesting tonight, that greater Wilmington area, and I'm very curious to see what you find in the next 5 minutes or so. The National Weather Service sent us this graphic just about 7 o'clock or so, which showed 48-hour precipitation totals from the greater Wilmington area, with Loris coming in at 9.35 inches, North Myrtle Beach coming in at 7.65 inches. And you can just see that even the lowest rainfall amounts in Waterford Plantation, South Carolina, just nearly 3.5 inches of rain in the past 48 hours. And that was before the rain that we're tracking right now live with you. So when we look at a Surfside Beach total of 4 inches, well, we're adding rain on top of that. And that is where we really start to get concerned about flash flooding in all of the places you see on the screen now. And these are just samplings of where the Weather Service has collected some of the top precipitation amounts. Certainly, if you live near one of these places or between one of these places, you probably have a number very similar to these on your screen. And as we continue to watch more rain pile down tonight, those numbers could go up. So how much more rainfall can we expect from this storm as we head on through the rest of tomorrow and the overnight hours? Well, let's start with the precipitation totals that we can expect to see in North Carolina, and then we'll go to South Carolina after that. So these are additional rainfall amounts on top of what I just showed you, or on top of what you already have wherever it is you may be located. So another 3 or 4 inches in places like Wilmington or Jacksonville, North Carolina, 4 to 6 inches in Elizabethtown. We're seeing that rain ongoing right now. Sanford, Raleigh, Greensboro, and even Mount Airy, all the way up the I-77 corridor near Virginia. That's in the 4 to 6 range. We saw that a little bit earlier in the broadcast tonight, where the Weather Service, the WPC, was outlining that area really as we go on through the course of tomorrow, and that high risk for flash flooding. It kind of cuts right through the state on an angle, right from the coast through Fort Liberty and Fayetteville up towards North Carolina Zoo and into Greensboro, which is a slight adjustment of where exactly we thought that would be. It's not a surprise to see that any particular area is going to have that high risk of flash flooding, or that the areas around it have that medium to slight risk, but that really kind of, I think, paints a picture for us as we look at the rainfall totals that are projected yet still to come, where we could see additional rainfall amounts. Where I am in Charlotte, 3 to 4 inches. The foothills, Boone, Hickory, Shelby, 2 to 3 inches. Asheville, you could even see up to an inch of rain from this. Same thing in places as I bounce back over to the Outer Banks, 2 to 3 inches in Hatteras. So we're seeing a wide range of rainfall still to come across the Carolinas. Let's show you South Carolina here. You can see, if you're watching live with us on YouTube and Facebook, where that really picks up and blends well with the forecast from North Carolina. Shaw, 6 to 8 inches, because it's real close to where that high to extreme risk of flash flooding would be. 4 to 6 inches ranging from Rock Hill down towards Camden and Florence and Sumter. And then we could still see another 3 or 4 inches just outside of Spartanburg, down towards Newberry, just north of Columbia, Orangeburg, Sumter, Walterboro, and Moncks Corner. You could see 2 to 3, maybe 4 inches of rain. And again, lesser amounts as you make your way off to the west. Anderson, about 1 inch. Aiken, up to 1 inch. Those amounts almost kind of drop off pretty quickly then as you make your way over to the Georgia or even the Tennessee border. And again, as we show you on future cast, what we can expect to see is that landfall some point in the next few hours. Those heavy bands of rain will be on the north side of the storm for the most part. The southern side, of course, a little bit drier, but we could see sporadically a little bit more rain moving through. But you can see as this very slow moving storm comes across the Carolinas, how much more rainfall we could expect to see. As I'm playing this through right now, that's 15 hours from now. That's 20 hours from now. That is 30 hours from now. We're still seeing rain from Debby. As we begin to push out of later Friday, this will then become a flooding concern for the Mid-Atlantic and the Northeast. It reminds me a lot of what we saw in Irene. As we look at the model's projected rainfall yet still to come, it lines up real nicely with what the forecast from the National Weather Service is saying. But you can see those pinks and magenta, if you're watching on with us right now, stretching right across portions of that I-70, I-40 corridor in North Carolina. Essentially from I-77 to the east is where we could see ongoing flash flooding on top of what we are already seeing, as we can project to see even more rainfall. And that's why, as we're watching these live pictures right now from Dan, we're very interested to see where we are still very early in this storm, especially for North Carolina. Jared, I know you were with me when we covered Irene. I was actually up in Pennsylvania in the Northeast. And so while we talk a lot about the flooding that this storm may bring in comparison to hometown storms like Florence or like Matthew, the weekend headline is going to end up being flooding in the Northeast, which looks so similar to me to what we saw during our Irene coverage.
Yeah, I think it's going to be moving a little bit faster, but yeah, this is just because you're in the Northeast, you're not getting spared from this. Now, Debby will certainly be moving much faster than it has been here, which, not a hard bar to cross, to be clear. But yeah, I mean, there's, everyone has their benchmark storm, and it's tough to compare, right? Comparing storms is always, fraught with concern and everything like that. But, it's going to evoke those memories. And sometimes that can be spurring people to action in ways that they may not have before. And we certainly hope that would be the case. Can bring up some fear. It can bring up some anxiety. And so going to be a lot of mixed emotions up there in the Northeast over the weekend for sure.
Yep, appreciate that. Jared, I'd like to come back to you in just a minute. I know the Weather Service says they're watching some of those cells continuing to come on shore. Morehead City putting an update into Weather Service Slack on exactly what it is they are watching. We're also hearing right now from some of the other Weather Service offices about ongoing flash flooding and considerable flash flood warning. So considerable flash flood warning would be kind of a second tier, tier 2 out of 3 of how serious a flooding concern might be. So the National Weather Service in Raleigh right now issuing a flash flood warning of a considerable nature from Cumberland, Hokie, Sampson, and Scotland counties in North Carolina, because they are continuing to watch, again, rainfall rates of 2 to 4 inches on top of 1 to 3 inches of rain that have already fallen. So they are concerned that they could get into a situation of life-threatening flash flooding, especially along creeks and streams, urban areas, highways, streets, and underpasses where water might pool or pond up a bit. We'll take some of your questions and comments if you're watching along with us live on YouTube. If you're listening to our audio podcast feed, this is obviously a break a little bit from our weekly weather show format, but we're going to try to paint as best of a picture we can for you on what it is that we are looking at, whether it's a map or cameras. If you're playing back the audio, we will continue to publish audio updates on storm warnings, even updates from North Carolina and South Carolina emergency management and governors as they are continuing to track that storm. Maggie telling us right now that there's great lightning in Vail, North Carolina. We'll work on bringing up some more cameras. Let's check back in right now with Jared, who's had a chance to look at some of that offshore rotation. And Jared, what are we looking at right now?
So this is an area that had a special marine warning on it a few minutes ago, and it still does. Possible water spout in Morgan Bay, New River Inlet. We're going to zoom in on it. If there's a circulation, it's going to be very close to North Topsail Beach and Sneed's Ferry here in a matter of minutes. We'll see if that is going to come to pass. This has weakened a little bit in the last couple scans, which is quite helpful. Hopefully that trend continues. We also have another area of rotation that's kind of a little bit further out there for sure, but we'll set this into motion to show you exactly what's what. And see, this guy is tracking pretty much on the same line here, eventually possibly affecting Jacksonville if they hold together. That is always the question. But again, zooming in here, there's there is some evidence of a little bit of an enhanced wind signature here. So we'll see what happens. But again, there's this special marine warning out for water spouts. We'll see if the Weather Service decides that they need to do a land-based tornado warning. Again, remember, a tornado watch is in effect here until 11 o'clock, and it wouldn't shock me if they extended that. We're getting kind of into the last hour of that watch, and so it's very possible they may end up extending that as well. So looks like I got another area of rotation that's trying to pop up right just south of that too. So again, it's going to be we know what this is like. We know what this is like, but we're going to be okay. We'll just have to watch these circulations carefully as they get near Jacksonville right now. So I say Jacksonville, North Carolina. I would say keep your head on a swivel around the weather here for a little bit. Looks like you may be kind of in the conga line, so to speak, for supercells.
Here's a live look right now at the WeatherStem camera in Wilmington, North Carolina.
James, you are muted.
Thank you, Jared. Here's a live look right now at Wilmington, North Carolina from the WeatherStem camera at UNC Wilmington. You can see, of course, those gray skies, and you can see the camera bouncing a little bit as we look at the tree line there with some of those lighter winds. We will see some winds, and those could help topple some trees over the course of the next few days. We could see tornadoes, as we've already seen in parts of the Carolina, but it's that flooding threat that is going to be chief among our concerns. Let's go back down to ground level near Wilmington, check in with our storm chaser Dan Whitaker right now, who again a few minutes out from making his way into Wilmington, where we've been getting reports of flooding. You're in a neighborhood right now, Dan. What are you seeing?
That's right. So I am very close to one of the first flood reports that I'm checking out here near Nunn and 17th Street in Wilmington. I am about 3 blocks away, so we'll see what we see as we kind of get into here. It'll be curious. This is my first time of tonight getting kind of deeper into a neighborhood where we're going to see how the drainage is doing. We're going to see basically is the flooding that we're seeing here in the flood report that came in, is it due to maybe an isolated issue, or is this kind of the sign of more flooding to come that is just the beginning? So here we see 17th Street and Nunn. This is actually where the one of the flood reports came in right here. It said it was at this intersection. I'm having a hard time understanding that street was impassable. It actually looks quite okay. So yeah, we're seeing pooling on the sides of the roads, but so far I'm not seeing any water over the roads here. I feel like if there was a place that could potentially be seeing some water in the roads, this would be a good place for it, just because of the hilly nature of the neighborhood. And I can imagine in this kind of older neighborhood that the drainage isn't perfect.
Well, the good news is that drainage might be good enough that it was able to clear out by the time you got there. And that's good news, too. The water could come and go pretty quickly. But, the question is, and I'm going to show people where you are right now in Wilmington, where, it is continuing to rain. That flood report here, just in like southern downtown Wilmington, just off to the east of 421. And, if you're familiar with the area where 17 and 74 come into the downtown area, the question, I guess, then is where did the water go? Because water definitely has to go someplace, and luckily when you're in Wilmington, you're pretty close to the river, and the water might have a chance to kind of just flow off pretty naturally. But I will say, because I don't think we've said it yet, that when we start to get flooding a little bit further inland, even in the coastal regions, but also up to the sandhills of South Carolina or the Piedmont of North Carolina, that water has to go someplace. So even if it were to flood a street come tomorrow where I live in Charlotte and then flow down into the river, that then would have to make its way down the Catawba River watershed or the PD River watershed. And then folks along the coast, you could be watching days of continued flooding. Even long after Debby is gone, that water would still have to be working its way out to the Atlantic. And, one of our chief concerns, Jared, as I understand it, and you're our coastal guy, is the way this storm is set up right now, kind of pushing on shore. It's going to be really hard for that water to come out the PD River or those other watersheds. And so water flowing downstream might have nowhere to go right away. Is that right?
Yeah, it doesn't help. That's for sure. It doesn't help. We also have to look at the tides. The good news is that we're kind of mid-lunar cycle, which is very good. We had a new moon this past weekend, but we're a few days out from that now, and so that will help. The other thing that's going to help too is that once Debby gets further north, we'll start to see the wind begin to shift around, and that'll help, blow some of that water out. But yeah, it's not helping us. It's not helping that situation at all.
Yeah, and that's why I'm so glad with you on board the Carolina Weather Group. I feel like, maybe I have a better or more familiar hometown feel to the Piedmont or even into the mountains. And then, the coastal setup, our topography in the Carolinas is so unique. Where else in a region can you have both the Atlantic Ocean and skiing in the same area, right? And so that's why I like that. We've got Dan out right now looking firsthand at what's happening in Wilmington. We've got Jared Smith, who holds down the fort for us in Charleston. We have other folks right now who are with us on our weekly Carolina Weather Group podcast who also work in weather during the day. So Scotty Powell right now in his television studio in Myrtle Beach, Frank Strait with his day job with the state government in Columbia, South Carolina. And so it's always great during the week when we are able to have their expertise too on what exactly it is they are seeing. We're interested to know what you are seeing. If you want to drop a comment on Facebook or on YouTube when you're watching live with us right now, we can put those comments on the screen. Let us know where you are and what it is you are seeing. Angela right now in Knightsville saying it's pretty harsh where she is. And Rachel telling us in Somerville, lots of water there as well too. I had a question from earlier, I think it was from Meggie, asking would there be a lot of lightning with this? Not necessarily. We are seeing lightning right now as you make your way towards Lumberton, White Oak, and Elizabethtown in North Carolina. Not as much lightning with this type of setup as we might see with a severe convective setup, but we're certainly seeing some of that in the most intense areas right now. I'll also point out on the screen we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, about 10 reports of flash flooding that have been confirmed, and those green polygons that do stretch way inland from the coast all the way towards, like, say, Fort Liberty here, about 115 miles inland, down towards Rockingham in North Carolina, towards Dillon and Florence in South Carolina. That's about 100 miles from the coast. That's the reach right now of our flash flood warnings, and that is all expected to kind of migrate inland as we work our way through the next 12 to 24 hours. Jared, I know you and the Weather Service keeping a close eye on some of these storms, some of these cells coming on shore for possible rotation. Anything you spotted lately with regards to the Sneads Ferry special marine warning that's caught your eye in the last few minutes?
Well, I'm going to get there real quick, but I just wanted to let everybody know that we do have a new flash flood warning. If we can take that full, we have a new flash flood warning, and this is just issued here, goes until 1 o'clock, and includes Lumberton, Red Springs, Pembroke, Maxton, St. Paul's, Robeson Community College, Howellsville, Prospect, new flash flood warning as this very heavy band is moving in right now. And again, we've seen this, we've seen numerous very heavy rain bands moving through and dumping a lot of water in a very short amount of time. So there is that, and that's certainly something that we're going to want to keep an eye on. So let's go over to Sneed's Ferry here, and again, we do not have so far so good as far as a tornado warning. We have not seen that get issued. There is some weak rotation with this storm. I'll go ahead and take the I'm going to take the radar analyst full, and what we'll do with that is if I can get it to go full. What is going on here? Oh, there it is. There's the button. All right. So we'll take the radar analyst full, and what this is showing us here is I've got a 4-panel view up here. Now I'm obscuring one of the panels, so I'm going to just jump off the screen here for a minute. Magic. But this is the what I'm looking at. I'm looking at a 4-panel view of the typical radar reflectivity. I've got the velocity view. I've got the kind of the velocity view, and you can see that there's a little bit of green next to red here. Green towards, red away. The radar site is the radar site is Morehead City, so toward and away. And then normalized rotation, and it's fairly weak. We were using this the other night to kind of figure out what's what, and there is some looks like a weak circulation here. This was showing a pretty decent looking hook echo, but that seems to not be as pronounced as it was. Now, when we zoom out on this 4-panel view, we'll also note that we have several other areas of rotation offshore. This right here, let's see. Now you can see a little bit of a swirl in that. So, there could be, I wouldn't be surprised to see a marine warning come out on that at some point. A lot of little kinks in the at the leading edge of this line here that will indicate that things are trying to spin a little bit. So far, though, so good as far as land-based tornado warnings, and so hopefully we do not have to deal with that. I would rather we didn't have to deal with that, quite frankly, because that would not be a great way to spend an evening, as we know here in Charleston, James.
Yeah, you did a lot of that with us on Monday night. So many of the folks who were watching then back with us tonight. We appreciate them being back with us. We are continuing to watch right now the strong tropical moisture that is moving through as associated with Tropical Storm Debby. Here's a live look in Wilmington, North Carolina in the sky at UNC Wilmington from Weather STEM. And then we've got our own storm chaser extraordinaire, Dan Whitaker, out and about right now on the ground in Wilmington. He's looking for ongoing flash flooding, and certainly if he were to find something, we would relay that back to the National Weather Service so that they could compile additional storm reports to what they have already been able to relay back out to us. And, that information, again, going 2 ways as we try to tell them what we see, as do others, so that we can relay it to you at home. So keep us posted. Dan, if you see anything, let us know. I want to go to this South Carolina traffic camera right now, just near North Myrtle Beach, because I think it is, it's a little pixelated at the moment, but I read it a moment ago. The overhead sign there says, flooding possible, turn around, don't drown, which I think really conveys the messaging here as we go through the hours through the overnight into tomorrow. If you see water on the ground, you don't know how deep that water is, so be sure not to drive on through it. That was US 17 North at Bayshore Drive, not too far from the North Carolina border there. I said North Myrtle Beach. It's probably closer to the Little River. Let's see, do I have that camera back now? I think I have that camera back now. You can see that actual traffic camera display board. And also watch, you can see because of the lighting in this shot, guys, you can actually see the wind blowing that rain. So, we can see that as another reason that traveling the evening would be so difficult. Not only do we have wet roadways, ponding of water, but that moisture just being carried by wind as we approach now the 10 o'clock hour on this Wednesday night, just an hour away until the next update from the National Hurricane Center. Jared, how far offshore? I can see the radar behind you there. How far offshore would you say that eye, or that center of circulation, it's not really much of an eye, really. How close to landfall could we be?
Let's take a peek at that real quick, because I'm gonna take the satellite radar composite here, and it shoots us back there, but again, it's going to be a little bit difficult to see. I'm going to also take a look at another source of information as well, just to see if I can't get. I'm just gonna. I'm getting buoy reports. I'm trying to basically do a center fix here. I think we still got a little time, and we're seeing. Here, let me just show you what I'm showing you. So, taking a look at the observations here. So this is some of the buoys. So again, we expect the landfall to be somewhere between Ondaw, maybe Georgetown, and so you'll notice the winds are coming out of the northeast here, and so you got the winds coming out of the northeast here. You got winds coming out of the northwest here, and then you got winds coming out of the south at 41004. So if I had to guess. And what we'll do is we'll switch to the CLX radar to get a little bit of a better look at this. If I had to guess, your center of circulation, and keeping in mind that this isn't necessarily that, we're not right at the ground with the radar here. You can see a lot of that very heavy rain. Hugie does not need this rain. They've been dealing with, they've been dealing with significant flooding now for the better part of 2 days, and that's certainly not something that we wanted to see up there. But generally speaking, I think we're getting close. I would have to estimate that this is it's going to take a little time. Again, it's meandering. It's not really moving very much. It's moving north at about 3 miles an hour, so it's not going very fast. So we'll need to see ultimately what happens. But it does look like it's on track for that landfall near Awendaw, McClellanville, Bulls Bay, which is that cutout that you can see just south of Awendaw there.
I'm going to switch on. Thank you for that, Jared. I'm going to switch back over to Dan Whitaker, because I want to be able to relay to him what we're seeing. Is that EMS in the Wilmington area right now, Dan, is reporting down power lines near Windshield Height on Wrightsville Avenue, just west of Kerr Avenue. That is just north of US 17 and near the intersection with US 117. Down power lines right now being reported by the National Weather Service in Wilmington, where some of those heavy rains are coming on through. Dan, is there anything in particular that you have your vehicle pointed toward right now?
That's an interesting report. I've seen some wind. I mean, you can see even in my live stream right now, there's, a flag off to the right here blowing. You can kind of get a sense of the gusty winds coming about. But at this point, I'm kind of just, here you go. There's some puddling in the road. But I'm kind of just keeping my eyes open for the creeks and the levels of the water at some of these neighborhood creeks. I just got done following one through a few neighborhoods, and the creek had not yet risen over its bank and into the roads. There was some ponding in the fields beside the creek, but it still seems like, from what I'm seeing so far as a whole, that things are holding together pretty well over here in Wilmington as far as the flooding goes. So that's my general goal, is just to kind of keep pointing around towards low spots, towards areas with creeks, kind of get a gauge for what's actually happening, and then report it back if I see something. There's a few ways to get those reports into the National Weather Service, but ultimately that's a really important part of this activity, is eyes on the ground, what's actually happening. If I can give a report that shows that 6 inches of water, a foot of water is happening at this moment, it will really help kind of the forecasters from the National Weather Service really understand what's happening.
Yeah, certainly. We'd be happy to pass it along if you get anything. And as Dan was talking, I was using the forecast tools from the Weather Service to show you a little bit of what Dan might be experiencing there in the Wilmington area. So if we look at the Cape Fear River right now near Wilmington, you can see that the water is rising. At the last observation here, at about 4.5 feet was the observation for the tide height, and that's expected to crest in the next hour or two, closer to midnight, at about 5.5 feet. They do project it'll come back on down, but you can see the water right now is working its way up as we continue to look at that short-term forecast there. We are watching, though, other portions of the Cape Fear. We do have water rising and forecast to rise more rapidly right now at the observation station near Burgaw, where right now the tide heights are about 5.5 feet of water observation here, and that could climb all the way up to a moderate flood stage by the time we make it all the way to next Monday. Yeah, you read that right. 12.5 feet by the time we get to next Monday, because it's going to be taking all of that water from inland and working its way back out. You can see this as we click around to different sites. So this is the Black River near Tomahawk, North Carolina. Same thing, that water slowly rising here, about 8.5 feet, but it could reach moderate to almost major flood stage. Right now, the computer model is putting it at 21.6 feet come Sunday. 22 feet would be considered major flooding. And that's not something that's exclusive to the shores. As we make our way towards the PD River in Cheraw, Chesterfield County, North Carolina, by the time we reach Saturday at 8 a.m., it could be 41 feet. There, too, just shy of the 42-foot mark for major flooding, and that again is on Saturday. And so we're going to have to watch for those prolonged flooding events, especially along the watersheds and the rivers that are going to be trying to flow in all of that water from upstream, in addition to what we see falling from the sky right now on this Wednesday night. Dan, you've come to a stop. Anything catching your eye?
So I'm gonna get some gas here in a second, but I wanted to get a shot here of this tree kind of blowing. You can get a little bit of a gauge for the wind that's blowing across right now, and just kind of the gustiness of it. One moment there won't be much happening, and then another moment there will be a pretty good gust coming through. And I also want to kind of add on to what you were saying there, James. Something we don't think of a lot is that downstream flooding. It looks like there's a light flickering up there ahead. You might be able to see that on the stream.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But at Hurricane Florence in particular, that was one that was really interesting with how long it took some of that water to migrate down the rivers and cause major historic flooding in some areas, dam breaks and all sorts of stuff. In Hurricane Florence, I actually started once again in Wilmington, and it made landfall at about close to Wrightsville Beach, and that's where I was at the time. And then I found myself a week later coming back to Kinston, North Carolina, where there was a flood emergency due to the water levels rising on the rivers. And by that point, I feel like most people had kind of moved on from the severe weather impacts from Florence, but tell that to the communities that are now underwater. So I think it's something we need to definitely be more aware of, and it seems to almost not make sense. Why would a week later we're having a flash flood emergency from a hurricane that's now long gone? But that water traveling downstream can have some major impacts, and we're looking at maybe not the same situation as Florence or anything like that, but by this tropical storm coming up right into the Carolinas, right through it, it's going to bring and drop down all of that moisture associated with it. And like you said, James, that's got to go somewhere, and it's going to be going down these rivers.
Yeah, most certainly. And that's what I think's got everybody kind of on a heightened state of alert as this storm slowly moves on through. We're going to be watching for that flash flooding to occur. Matter of fact, as I'm looking at radar right now, and Dan, I know you're near the Wilmington area. I think we just got this might be some new Bladenboro reports here. Significant flooding, 9:45. Bladenboro with barricades in place at access points into the town. So let's talk about this here just for a second. Let's just read this report, and then I don't know, Jared, if you're seeing anything additional in National Weather Service chat, but we do have reported from emergency management right now near Bladenboro, North Carolina. Again, significant flooding reported in Bladenboro with barricades in place at all access points into the town. That is sending chills through me at this hour right now because it's still raining in Bladenboro.
Yeah, that's not good. That's not good.
We have an additional storm report where they were telling us at 9:20 that portions of South Main Street are impassable. And so from 9:20, we went from portions of South Main Street are impassable to 9:45, where the entire town is being cordoned off due to flash flooding. We still see right now rain falling in that area. There'll be a slight break that might give them some reprieve. But if we use satellite estimates here, we could see 3-hour rainfall accumulations of 2.5 inches have fallen across the town. That's obviously a lot of rain in 2.5 inches in 3 hours. That is the amount of rain that you sometimes see in a month. And they got that in the course of less than 3 hours. I'm just going to compare. That's the Wilmington radar. That's probably about as close as we're going to be able to get. And it's not even the most significant or severe. As we make our way further off towards down 211, closer to the shore, we can see radar estimates near Clarkton, 4 inches. I would be worried also what's happening right there in that town right now that we just simply don't know about yet. But you can see the rainfall accumulation amounts and how they kind of line up, of course, where we've been seeing those strong rainfall amounts moving on through the area. So, again, Bladenboro right now seems to be where things are really popping off to us right now. If you know anybody in that area, give them a call. See exactly what might be going on, and we'll try to see if we can learn any more information about that flooding that seems to be coming in with the newest batch of severe flash flood warnings, again, of that considerable level. That certainly, I think, would match that criteria, Jared.
Absolutely. And, I think it's just going to be one of those nights that we're going to have to, folks are just going to have to hunker in where they are. You don't want to be traveling in this. We can have roads that will be washing out. It doesn't happen right away. We had several instances of that today. James, if you check Zoom, I got something that I want to show everybody here.
Okay.
Talk about delayed impacts. A major sinkhole has opened up in Charleston. This is at Romney Street between King and Meeting. So I've got the
Yeah, I got it here.
Yeah, you got it here. So this is from Charleston Fire Department. Take a look at that. That's a pretty important road. And it's actually an escape route that I tell people to use, is Romney Street between King and Meeting. And this is there you go. I mean, that's a big sinkhole. And so we're going to be dealing with things like this. We had a road give way in Colleton County. Channel 5 News was there. Live 5 News WCSC. They were there. They caught it live. They caught it collapsing live. We're going to have issues that are going to last, you're going to have issues that are going to last for days.
And I'm also looking at this tweet, and you can actually see it in all transparency. The Weather Service replying back to the Charleston Fire Department asking how deep is that sinkhole, because I'm looking at this picture too, Jared, and I'm wondering the same thing because it almost just looks like blackness. And I'm guessing that's water that we can't actually see and reflecting light into how deep this sinkhole is.
Yeah, and again, that goes back to another thing, is that at night you cannot tell the depth of roads or anything that are covered by water. Can't see it. You definitely can't tell from here. They're going to have to get out a big measuring stick, I guess.
My goodness. Something to certainly keep a very close eye on, because as you said, not only is that a delayed reaction since Charleston got so much of the heaviest rain earlier on, but also something that could be happening elsewhere across the Carolinas as we head on through the course of the next few days. So thanks to P and his mom Gretchen for spotting that and putting it in the chat, and we can also see Jared's got it up there on the screen. So thank you guys for that report. It looked like in the last few minutes, Dan got back on the road, but it also looked like, Dan, maybe you were getting into some heavier rain there in the Wilmington area. It looked like it was picking up a little bit.
Yeah, the rain band that was coming in from the ocean kind of just rolled through a little bit. I'm still keeping my eyes peeled. I'm seeing maybe more like even right there. There's some ponding in the ditches beside the road that's starting to kind of be a little bit more telling of potentially some flooding in some of these roads. I do want to kind of also mention just about the Bladenboro area and around there, basically anywhere south of Fayetteville. You get this area between Whiteville and Lumberton that stretches all the way over into Florence, where you have just a massive network of little creeks. And I'm probably more familiar. Here's a little bit of water on the road. It's just probably a couple inches deep. But I'm more familiar with that area in flooding because of Hurricane Matthew. Actually, I stayed with Hurricane Matthew from Myrtle Beach all the way over to Dillon and Florence, and I was driving up towards Lumberton, and what I found is that pretty much all of those creeks quickly fill up and become impassable with enough water. I assume that's probably what's happening right now in Bladenboro, and that surrounding area is just basically not handling the water that well because of the kind of the topography of those areas. For me, what ended up happening in Hurricane in the Hurricane Matthew, when I was in that area, was basically as the rain bands came in and the water rose, it cut off my position to be able to keep moving with the storm. And I had to eventually kind of just take refuge on a hill and wait for the water to drain down. It took about 9 hours, and I was finally able to make it out. So sometimes this water just drains very slowly in these areas that have just a lot of creeks. In that scenario, every single creek that was between Lumberton and Florence, South Carolina, was overflowing into the road. I don't think we're seeing anything quite like that with this storm, and I don't expect we will be. But knowing that area, I assume some of that's going on.
Yeah, I think you're probably right, Dan, and we can see a whole new batch of updated flood warnings coming out now as the Weather Service in Wilmington continues to extend their flood warnings. For instance, right now in Darlington, South Carolina, and Florence, South Carolina, they've extended the flood warning there along the Black Creek at Quinby. Not one of the creeks you were talking about, but the same idea, where it's at 16 feet right now, with floodwaters already on Creekside Drive, East Black Creek Road, and Crooked Creek Drive. Floodwaters spreading there onto Cypress Bend Road into the Country Club of South Carolina. So that's why they have extended the flood warning there in Pender, North Carolina, along the northeast Cape Fear River near Burgaw, 12.5 feet where floodwaters came across Riverbend Road, River Birch, and Alligator Lake subdivisions off Highway 53, making all of that area impassable. This relates, I think, mostly to that general area you were just talking about, Dan, where these areas become isolated due to the floodwaters, and some evacuations may be needed, and that's why we've seen places like the Charlotte Fire Department sending their swift water rescue crews to places like Bladen County, North Carolina, or Harnett County, where the Mooresville Fire and Rescue Swift Water Rescue Team is this evening, to help folks who get isolated, as Dan said, along these subdivisions that are surrounded by creeks. For the flood warning right now that is ongoing near Burgaw, in the Holly Shelter Estate subdivision, half the area has water on the roads due to floodwaters, with approximately 12 homes on Old Maple Hill Road off Shaw Highway becoming isolated. I'm going to keep going through some of these flood reports because I think they speak volumes to some of the ongoing flooding that is happening right now. The Waccamaw River near Freeland, this is at 17 feet, that is, where flooding continues to worsen along the river. Much of the Pierway Road between Horseshoe Road Northwest, Rivergate Drive flooded, as well as Rivergate Drive itself. This is all because of ongoing river flooding there, as they've already seen at about 17 feet. In Horry and Marion, South Carolina, the Little PD at Galavant's Ferry. This is a warning that is ongoing until further notice because floodwaters there have affected 30 to 40 homes in the Fork Rick area. I might be saying that wrong. It's near Nichols. It's about 12 feet deep there already, with water continuing to rise. Bladen, North Carolina, and Cumberland, North Carolina, the Cape Fear River at William Oak Husk Lake Dam number 3. It's at 52 feet right now, with extensive lowland flooding occurring along the river. A few buildings there already near the river are being impacted by floodwaters from the river and its tributaries, with water levels reaching the door of the USGS well house there near dam number 3. We do have flooding ongoing in Robinson, North Carolina. This is a town that's going to sound so familiar to Dan, Jared, and I, and anyone who was with us for, I guess it was Matthew, if I recall correctly. We have flooding right now near the Lumber River, near Lumberton, and 19 feet extensive flooding occurring along the river, with over 50 dwellings inundated or isolated due to floodwaters. Several roads closed, especially in the Pine area and Cox Pond area, with Cartridge Road there being completely covered by water. It's very sad and unfortunate, Jared, to see flooding already ongoing in Lumberton, because this is a place where they are unfortunately no stranger to flooding.
No, and it's very much here we go again. And again, the slow-moving nature of this, they're going to be the problem too is that they're on the dirty side of the storm, and they're going to be there for, potentially hours. The fire hose coming ashore here. This is not going to move very quickly until tomorrow. And really not even that fast tomorrow. It's going to be Friday before we really start to get this out of here. And so, yeah, that's not a good situation at all. There's a lot of water yet to come. You can see there's just some very heavy rain bands are just training in. Yeah, it's not good. It's not good. I feel for those folks. I really do.
Yeah, and again, we want to remind you that if you live in any of those areas, or really anywhere in the Carolinas, you need a way during the overnight hours to get flash flood warnings that will wake you up. If you know that you live in a flood-prone area near a creek or a low-lying area, you may want to proactively move to higher ground, because remember, we hide from wind. We seek shelter from tornadoes. We need to flee water. We need to get away from that water and move safely to higher ground. All night long, our Carolina Weather Net will be streaming for free wherever it is you watch YouTube. That will allow you to see live radar, cameras, and warnings from the National Weather Service on your phone, on your smart TV. So long as we got power here at CWGHQ, we'll be streaming that free Carolina Weather Net for you. Dan Whitaker will be out and about. We'll have live streams on our Carolina Weather Group YouTube channel. We'll be checking in with him during the course of this storm, which in just the next few hours will be making its second U.S. landfall and its first in the Carolinas, as we continue to watch Tropical Storm Debby, which will be most remembered for its flooding impacts across the Carolinas. We got about 3 minutes left on our show. Jared Smith, last words from you.
Well, I think, again, I think the good news is that this is going to get out of here. I feel bad for people named Debbie, because I don't know how much people like that name right now. It's been a thorn in our side for several days, and it's going to be a thorn in our side for a couple more, and then the after effects. So again, there's going to be flood warnings for days. There's going to be a need to be weather aware. There's going to be a need for people to make sure that they are not, that they're not going through these floodwaters. I mean, it's just, you got to stay out of them. It's not good. It's not good. I mean, I would hate to see, I got to tell you, I would hate to see, for example, Gretchen drive into floodwater and stall their car. And, I would hate to see that. And we want everybody, everybody just to be safe up and down the Carolinas and into the Northeast.
Thank you for those words, Jared Smith. He'll be keeping an eye on things over at CHSWX on the social platforms. Dan Whitaker, closing words from you during this program here tonight.
I guess for me, it's a kind of wait and see thing. I will be trekking with this storm into the the mainland of the Piedmont and the Triangle of North Carolina as these rain bands continue to come up. So we will see kind of what happens from here. If those areas get 4 to 6 inches or in that nature, we could see, flooding across the state. And I hope that the flooding remains limited. And like Jared said, I hope that the storm moves out quickly, but I will be kind of staying with it the whole way and providing back anything else that I can find useful to both the public and to Carolina Weather Group.
Thank you very much, Dan Whitaker. Do stay safe out there. We'll be watching for your updates here on the Carolina Weather Group YouTube and over on your Twitter account. Again, in just moments, if you're watching live with us on YouTube, you will be transferred over to the Carolina Weather Net for all-night tracking of these storms. As Jared said, do stay weather-aware, stay safe, make sure you have a weather plan and ways to receive warnings. We will be back over the course of the next few days with periodic updates, but of course, we always tell you that if you have a life-saving decision that needs to be made, we do trust that you will turn to your local media, our friends in the broadcast industry, who will help you in your community minute by minute as we go on through this storm. For now, I'm James Brierton in Charlotte, North Carolina. Thanks for trusting the Carolina Weather Group with your update tonight. The landfall just hours away as we unwelcome Debby to the Carolinas. Stay safe. We'll talk to you again real soon.